Good afternoon, Sunshine Fam. Welcome to my channel. My name is Chloe Murphy, and I would really love it if you are new to my channel, if you could, click that subscribe button and the notification bell and join the Sunshine Fam. So today I'm going to do a little bit different video than what I've been doing. It kind of ties in with the 3 videos I've already done, 3 or 4 videos that I've already done, but I'm not going to mention about what's going on out there on the streets of Minneapolis today. I've done some more research, of course, but not on this group. It is on a totally different subject, things that I have hinted about in past videos, and I've talked a lot about it on my Facebook page. I have commented on a lot of other people's videos about this, and I am going to back up my words with actual facts that I have found. And that is that it's not just illegal immigrants that are committing these violent crimes. So I'm going to start with that. And I'm not going to give you a lot of information about these people. Just 3 items on each person. Three bits of information. The first person is named Tyler Robinson. He was 22 years old and he grew up in Utah. And you're wondering, why are you telling me about Tyler Robinson? Who is this? Well, Tyler Robinson is the person responsible for murdering Charlie Kirk. Murdering Charlie Kirk. But he grew up in Utah. Thomas Crooks. Maybe you know that name, maybe you don't. He was 20 years old and he grew up in Pennsylvania. So who is Thomas Crooks? He's the man responsible for shooting Trump last year. Didn't kill him, but he shot him during a rally in Pennsylvania, actually. Shot him in the ear. Nicholas Cruz, that name probably is a little bit more familiar to you. At the time of his crime, he was 19 years old. He's currently 27. And he was born in Florida. So for those of you that don't remember who Nicholas Cruz was, he was responsible for murdering 17 people in Parkland, Florida. Robin Westman was born Robert Westman, and they were 23 years old. And this person was raised in Minnesota. This person is responsible for killing 2 children at Annunciation Church in Minneapolis last year. Perhaps you remember that. Us Minnesotans do. Stephen Paddock. Does that name ring a bell? He was 64 years old, and he was born in Iowa. What is he responsible for? He is responsible for murdering 60 people, injuring 867, of which 413 were injured by gunshot wounds. Does that sound familiar? Well, maybe this will jog your memory. He's responsible for the largest mass murder to date in the United States. Harvey Weinstein, we all know that name. He's 73 years old, and he was born in New York. His crime? Sexually molesting countless women. Not just actresses. People that worked for him or tried to work for him. He's currently in jail. Jeffrey Epstein, of course, we all know that name in recent weeks and months, because his name is all over the news, right? He was 66 years old and he was born in New York, and he ran the largest sex trafficking ring. Ghislaine Maxwell. She's 64 years old, and she was born in France. She helped Epstein with the child sex trafficking ring. She's currently rotting in jail. Ramzi Youssef. Perhaps you know that name, perhaps you don't. He is currently 57 years old. He was born in Kuwait. So what is Ramzi Youssef known for? He's responsible for the 93 bombing of the World Trade Center, killing 7. If we are to believe what was reported in a movie called Path to 9/11, after the 93 bombings, he met with his uncle and he masterminded, the two of them actually, came up with the idea for 9/11. And they called it the Planes Operation. It was originally supposed to be that they were going to blow up 12 airplanes in the air over U.S. soil. And it ended up being 9/11. That's if what they reported in the movie Path to 9/11, you can watch it here on YouTube, is accurate. Zacarias Moussaoui. Perhaps you don't know that name. He's 57 years old and he was born in France. So what is he responsible for? He was training for 9/11 and he was actually arrested here in Minnesota in the Twin Cities. I don't remember if it was Minneapolis or a suburb. Both of these people, Ramzi and Zacarias, are sitting in a prison in Colorado. That's right. Your tax dollars are going to keep them in prison. Now, something I did point out in one of my comments on a video was why isn't Ramzi Youssef being taken out of jail and deported? And then I stopped myself in the middle of that comment. I kept that part up and I said, I understand. I said, before you start jumping down my throat, I understand that releasing him could be catastrophic because he could plan another attack here or somewhere else. But my solution to that, and to all terrorists, stick them on a deserted island in the middle of the ocean in shark-infested waters, giving them no means of getting off the island and no means of communication with the outside world. Let them kill each other off. Adam Lanza. Does that name ring a bell? It's a little more recent. He was 20 years old and he was born in New Hampshire. So what was his crime? He murdered 26 people, 20 of which were children between the ages of 6 and 7 years old. That's right. He was responsible for Sandy Hook. He also killed his mother, by the way, before he went to the school. Murdered her with her own gun. And then he turned the gun on himself. So why am I telling you about these people? Well, maybe because we are being told by our government, certain somebody that I don't want to use her name because her name makes my blood boil, that all these illegal immigrants that were let in by the previous administration, they're saying like 20 million or something like that, were let into this country, and we're trying to eradicate them from our country, have committed all these violent, horrendous crimes like murder and rape and child predators, sex predators. These people, most of these people were born in the U.S. and they created the same crimes. They committed the same crimes. That's my point. So let's talk about human trafficking rings in the U.S., since that is also one of these alleged things that are going on with all these illegal immigrants. They don't mention the U.S., the U.S. citizens that are committing the same crimes. They're talking about gangs. How about the Crips? How about the Bloods? How about the Latin Kings? They're gangs that have been here for centuries. Well, okay, decades. we won't say centuries, but decades. They've been in this country for decades. Think about that. KN. Okay, so when I looked up information about human trafficking rings in the U.S., it's unknown exactly how many there are. However, in 2023, there were reports of 9,619 cases, which involved 16,999 victims. Let that go through your brain for a minute. That's not even a topic in the news these days. The hotline has received over 112,000 cases of human trafficking. And it's not just illegal immigrants. This has been going on for years. Look at Jeffrey Epstein. Now let's talk about scams. That's not even mentioned in these high-profile cases, but it's a big issue. So between 2024 and 2025, money scams, there have been over 850,000 money scams, equaling 2.8 million per day. Oh, I'm sorry, 850,000 to 2.8 million per day. But then I put reported yearly. That doesn't make sense. But that's what I found. 77% of Americans encounter a scam. And that equals about 2,300 per day. So maybe the yearly is 850,000 to 2.8 million reported yearly. So let me correct myself on that. In 2026, the highest scams are online purchases, phishing, PHISH, and employment scams. Does that surprise you? In 2024, the losses were $12.5 billion, mostly cryptocurrency. So you might want to consider doing crypto or rethink it. So love scams. Dr. Phil had a lot of those on there on his show when he was on the air. In late 2024, 42,000 plus were reported in the first 9 months, totaling $823 million. You don't consider that a crime? In 2023, 64,000 plus were reported. So it looks like it went down, like was cut in half. Well, not quite in half, but at least the numbers were going down from 23 to 24. It didn't give any information about 2025 or 2026, obviously, because we're just barely into the year. So now I have a question for you. Anybody ever hear of a guy named Chris Hansen? Was a reporter. Well, why are his shows so popular? You talk about child predators. Let me name some of the shows that he's been on. To Catch a Predator, Hansen versus Predator, and his current one that you can find here on YouTube is called Takedown with Chris Hansen through Trublu, Trublu. And you can see a lot of these. And those guys are not illegal immigrants. A lot of them aren't. A lot of them are Americans. And what's sick is that some of these guys are 60, 70 years old. And they're trying to lure these guys out, so they work with a group. I can't remember what it was. I didn't write it down. They're working with local law enforcement. And they're having these law enforcement people pose as like 14, 15-year-old children to catch these guys. And they go to a sting house. And what's crazy, I've seen a lot of these videos last year. And what blows my mind is the fact that a lot of these guys are afraid to go to the house, but they go anyway. And they know that it's probably a sting operation with Chris Hansen. Because as Chris Hansen comes out, a lot of these predators are like, oh my God, I knew it was going to be you. They know Chris Hansen. They know his shows. Yet they show up at these homes thinking they're going to be meeting with a predator. And what's even crazier is in a couple of these episodes, there's actually people that have gotten to these predators before. I mean, these predators are talking to other people that aren't part of the law enforcement that Chris Hansen is working with. That's terrifying for anybody who has children that age. These kids think they're invincible. Always monitor what your kids are doing. You're not being nosy, you're protecting your kids. So it's terrifying that Chris Hansen's show is so popular. I'm getting a phone call, but I'm making a video, so I'm not going to answer the call. So now, let's switch gears here a little bit. And let's talk a little bit about history. So I was looking up about 100 years ago. Actually, some of this is a little over 100 years ago. I was looking up about when and why Poland was invaded, which caused World War II. So Poland was invaded by Hitler on September 1st of 1939. And it was to acquire living space, and I don't know quite how to say this, but I'm going to do my best. It's either Lebensraum or Lebensraum. I think it's SC. Could be SR. I can't always read my writing. And it started by false claims about a German radio station. So then I looked up, I mean, we all know exactly who Hitler was, so I didn't go into that detail, but then I decided to look up these concentration camps. And I asked Google what the first concentration camp was that was open. And it told me Dachau was the first concentration camp opened. Get this, March 22nd, 1933, a full 6 years before he even entered Poland. 2.7 million people were murdered in concentration camps, which included Auschwitz-Birkenau, Treblinka, Dachau, Belzec, and Bergen-Belsen. If you can stomach it, there is a video that they have remastered to make it color that shows the Liberation Day of Bergen-Belsen. If you think you can handle it, go ahead and watch that. It is very, very disturbing. I have a pretty strong stomach. I can pretty much, separate myself to a degree for certain things. When I was watching this, I almost had to go to the restroom to get sick. It just, the inhumanity that I saw on Liberation Day of Bergen-Belsen, it just made me sick to think that human beings could be so cold and black-hearted to do that to other human beings. Now, Bergen-Belsen is actually where Anne Frank and her sister ended up at. And unfortunately, they died, I think, like a couple months before the liberation. Very, very sad. Only if you think you can stomach it, because it is very, very graphic. So in total, there were 6 million Jews that were murdered. Between 7 and 10 million non-Jews were murdered. So the total mass killings equaled 13 million plus. So now let's jump forward to now, today. There is a place in El Salvador, and I'm sure you've heard of it because it's probably been on the news. It's called CCOT, and I'm probably going to murder this because I don't speak Spanish, but in Spanish, it is called Centro de Confinamiento del Terrorismo, which means Terrorism Detention Center. The capacity of this place is 40,000 people. It was opened on January 31st of 2023. I encourage you to watch the latest episode of 60 Minutes that talks about what's going on in Minneapolis. It does a segment on CCOT, and the last story is about saltwater crocodiles in Australia. But watch that and tell me that that does not remind you of 100 years ago in Poland and Germany. On June 11th, 2024, there were 14,532 inmates were reported being there. There are no reports of how many inmates are there since that date that I found, and I looked it up. I couldn't find anything. So then I thought, well, how big is this place anyway? It is 6 acres large, which means 6.5 square feet living space per prisoner. That's not very big. The average size of any jail, not in CCOT, but any jail, is a 6 by 8 foot cell. Gives you a little bit more room. But what bothered me about watching that 60 Minutes episode is it showed the living conditions of these so-called criminals. A lot of these people are ones that were taken out of the United States that are legal immigrants with no criminal record. They're getting sent down to El Salvador. And yes, KN, we'll not use her name, KN went down there. And she's standing in front of one of these cells. They have the cots, like, they're metal cots. And I can't tell you how large this cell room was. But they had like 3 rows of these cots, and they were stacked, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 things high, 7 cots high on top of each other. Like metal shelves that you would put in your garage. And there were hundreds of prisoners laying on these cots that have no mattress. And it's not just one person per cot. There's like 5 or 6, 7 people across, and it goes way back. I mean, I'm guessing that cell is definitely longer than my kitchen to my living room combined. And I can't tell you how long it is. Maybe about the length of my entire apartment from here all the way back to my bedroom, which I know you don't know how big that is, but it was huge. And she's standing in front of these prisoners that are standing there looking like they're in a concentration camp and saying what a great job these guards are doing. Seriously, watch that 60 Minutes. It'll make you sick. So as I said, there's no information about how many inmates are there today. So then I started looking up about religious cults in the U.S. So you're like, why are you throwing that into the mix? Well, when I tell you about the 3 that I looked up, you will understand. In Topeka, Kansas, there's a very famous one, which I'm sure you've heard of, called Westboro Baptist Church. And it was founded in 1955. Today, there's about 70 people. A lot of these people are from the family of the guy that founded it. And some of the younger kids, once the cameras were let in and they were allowed around there, and these kids were speaking for the Westboro Baptist Church, since then, a lot of these kids have decided to escape and are speaking out against their own parents that are very high on this cult. They're the ones that you see on street corners saying, "Thank God for dead military." They do a lot of protests at military funerals with those signs, and they stomp on the ground. They stomp the flag on the ground, and yeah, they're the horrible people. There's another one that you may have heard of from Dr. Phil, because he had a couple of episodes about this church. I use that term lightly. It's called Church of Wells, and it's located in Wells, Texas. It was founded in 2011. Now, this church is very dangerous because it was founded by two guys that were college students and roommates, and they have very radical beliefs. Actually, there's three guys that kind of run it now. They go around the country, mostly in the South, I think. And they are considered street preachers. And what they do is they find these people on the street and ask them about God, and they start talking to them about God. And then they offer these people a drink that has been spiked. And they kidnap these people and bring them back to Wells, Texas. And they continue giving them drugs, and they brainwash these people. And one of the episodes of Dr. Phil was a family that their brother, the son and the brother, whatever the family, had their family member kidnapped by these street preachers. And this guy was kind of out on the streets preaching too, but he wasn't a part of Church of Wells. I don't remember where exactly it was located, but it was somewhere in the South. Maybe Louisiana or Alabama or something like that, somewhere around there. Mississippi. And these guys saw that this guy was preaching, so that's how they latched onto him. And thankfully, the family members were able to go in and rescue him. And after he came down off of the drugs that these three guys from Church of Wells gave him, he's like, "What happened to me?" And then all of a sudden it became clear to him he didn't remember everything, but he remembers these guys, talking to him about God, and then, giving him a drink, and him kind of going in and out. Well, the whole time he was there for quite a while. And the family came, found out where he was at, came and asked to have lunch with him. And the guys that were running it were kind of like protecting their family member, like standing in front of them. And, they weren't really confrontational, but they were kind of like assertive, not aggressive, but assertive to the family members. And they finally agreed to let this guy go with the family to have lunch. Well, thankfully they did that, because it was at that lunch that they rescued their family member and brought him out. So they are a very dangerous group. I'm sure anybody that might be watching from the South has heard of these people. The other one is no longer in operation, but it was here in Minnesota, up in Pine City. And it was called River Road Fellowship. And the leader of it was Victor Bernard. And it operated from the early 1990s until 2014. Then some of the girls that had been sexually abused by him, which often happens in these cults, especially the FDLS, or FLDS, I guess it's called. They're kind of, the FLDS, I think, is kind of a part of the old Mormons, where they take multiple wives, including children. Very sick. Kind of like David Koresh. Remember him? Waco, Texas. Branch Davidians. They still exist, actually, today. Not to the degree that David Koresh does, but anyway, this guy, when some of the girls were able to escape, they went to the police. And when Victor Bernard heard about this, he fled the country. So for a while, nobody could find him because he went off the map. The other people that were part of that church tried to keep it going until the law finally caught up with them and extradited him back to the U.S., and he is now sitting in prison, thankfully. The city of Wells, Texas, including the police department, kind of protects the Church of Wells. They say, well, they're not really doing anything wrong. You know, the First Amendment does give them freedom of religion. They can preach and stuff like that. They're not along the lines of David Koresh, you know, where he was getting guns and shooting them off and scaring the neighbors. That's how that whole thing started. But the reason I'm talking about these things today is to open your eyes and let you know that it's not just these illegal immigrants that are committing these horrible crimes. Yes, some of these people, most of these people are in jail. Some of them are dead by their own hand or other people's hands. But you know, that's a lot of people, and that's just probably a fraction of U.S. citizens or people that might be here illegally or legally, committing the same crimes that KN is portraying that only illegal immigrants that were led into this country under the previous administration are committing. Especially that Thomas Crooks. Maybe she needs to go and look. I think it's funny that the person's last name is Crooks. Not that he stole anything, but he did try to kill Trump. I am going to suggest at this point that instead of us screaming at each other, supporting one another about what's going on here. And there is something else that I want to bring up too in a second, if I remember. Instead of us taking out our frustrations and our anger on each other, not that we're fighting each other, but we're doing a lot of talking at this point amongst each other. A lot of comments on these videos that are being put out, myself included. It's like, what was her name? The girl that was kind of the spokesperson for the whole school in Parkland. I can see her face, but I can't think of her name. Anyway, when she stood up in front of the crowds and did her I call BS speech to President Trump at that time, I lost my train of thought. I've been doing that a lot lately. That's what happens when you don't work for 2 months. Or nearly 2 months. Emma Gonzalez, that was her name. But she was saying a lot of stuff during all of her speeches. And when they did, I don't know, I'm just kind of talking at this point, trying to remember what I was going to say about this. But when they did not the round table. That's what Vance did yesterday. He came into Minneapolis, had a meeting with the ICE people and our local police to come up with a solution, said his little speech, and then left. Didn't walk our streets. Didn't see how ICE was arresting the wrong people. I said I wasn't going to talk about that, sorry. But anyway, that was a round table yesterday. This was a, what did they call it? Where all those people went to like a stadium or something to do a talk. Town hall. And Emma Gonzalez was able to ask the head of the NRA a question. And when the NRA lady stood up and said, you know, this guy should never have had guns, Nicholas Cruz should never have had guns, and you could hear Emma in the background screaming, he bought it legally. That's very true. Of course there's not going to be a red flag on him, because he didn't have a prior record. Totally off subject of what I was going to actually say, and I still can't remember what it was. But what I was going to get to. What was I going to get to? I hate when this happens. I was talking about Minneapolis. Then I went off on Emma Gonzalez and the Parkland shooting. All these people, I'm just talking through so that I can bring it back to my mind, so bear with me a minute. All these people that are U.S. citizens that have committed the same crimes. Like I said, if I remember, which I'm not remembering. I hate when this happens. Of course, I can't go back and look at it. And what I really need to do is like record these, and that way if I lose my train of thought, I can just go back through the recording and figure out what I was saying, and then I can, it'll jog my memory. Or just write it freaking down, which I didn't do. I was gonna write down this thought, and I didn't. I don't remember what I was gonna say. I'm so sorry. If I remember, I will put it in the comments. How about that? So look in the comments below. My brain has been going a mile a minute in the last 2 weeks, and I have not been watching the news as much. So I'm starting to come down off of that anger. Oh, that's what I was saying. Okay. I knew if I talked enough, I would remember. Okay. So instead of us just talking to each other and making comments on other people's videos, we need to do action. That's what Emma was saying. No, it wasn't even Emma. It was one of the parents of one of the kids that were shot at Parkland said, "We're tired of the talk. We want action." That was at that town hall meeting. Al Haddad's mother said that, and that's exactly what we need to do. So what I have started doing is I reached out to the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry. Haven't heard back from him yet. I know he's trying to do damage control, and I know all of these representatives and senators from our state are working overtime with all that's going on out there. Write down your ideas and get together with your congressmen, your representatives, your senators, your mayors, your governors. Reach out to them, and hopefully they'll get back to you. Because like I said, not only did I reach out to the mayor, I reached out to my local representative for the area I live in. And I got an automatic reply saying, please reach out to this other person if you're requesting a meeting with me. So then I reached out to that person as well. Still waiting to hear back. I didn't expect an immediate response. Hopefully within a week I will hear a response, because I have a million ideas of how to calm things down. Now, I am occasionally going into our local news, and it seems like the focus has shifted just a little bit to other news that's going on, like the freezing cold temperatures outside. The last couple days, the wind chills have been 30 to 45 below zero, which is why a lot of people are not venturing out. I know that they are planning that, they had that strike today. I don't know how well it's going to go over, but with the cold temperatures, it should help, because there's like over 300 schools that were closed because of the temperatures. I know they were asking people not to bring their kids to school, not to go to work. A lot of people were saying those were just local small businesses, which I did look it up, and it, you know, a lot of these businesses are in downtown Minneapolis and other cities, but they were like small businesses that I've never heard of. And that's why I was trying to get the word out, because just us closing down and doing this strike only in the Twin Cities or only in the state of Minnesota is not going to put much of a dent on the overall economic problems here in the U.S. If everybody in the whole country could have done this, and maybe they are, I don't know, because it's supposed to be today. And then they're supposed to have a rally this afternoon and a march. I don't know how many people are going to go to that because of the cold temperatures outside. They did mention it this morning on KSTP, so I don't know if they're still planning on doing that or not. Maybe they'll hold it indoors or something, who knows. But protesting is one thing. We do have a right to do that. It's in the First Amendment. But screaming at these ICE agents and these border patrols, and one video I saw that they were screaming at sheriffs. Don't go after our police departments, okay? They're not responsible for all this. We need those people. But going after people that can actually make a difference in Washington, D.C. is where we need to put the focus. So reach out to your mayors, reach out to your governors, reach out to your local representatives. See if they'll get back to you, and see if you can write down some ideas. Because I know Minneapolis is being used as an example for the rest of the country, but I'm sure that there's problems going on in all major cities in every state. You're just not hearing about them because Minneapolis has this white hot spotlight on it right now because of so many of these agents being here. But we need to focus not so much at screaming at the ICE people. We've already done enough of that. Continue doing your research on these people. If you can get their names, do your research on them, and then get that information out. Maybe give that to your local representatives so they can look into this and see if those people should be deported instead of carrying a gun against us. So I will do my best to keep you guys informed about if I hear back from Mayor Fry, if I hear back from this representative that I wrote to, or his constituent. See if I can get a meeting with these people and what the result of that will be. I'm not exactly hopeful that it'll happen, but what's the phrase? Hope for the best and prepare for the worst. That's kind of what I'm doing right now. So don't rely on us YouTubers to get the word out to you guys. Do your own research. Do your own legwork. Use your own mouths to get this point across to other people. Right now, I'm not out there because I'm not working because of my arm. Because of the fall that I took last fall. The fall I took last fall, last October. I'm still recovering from that because I did, for those of you that don't know, I did fracture my bone And so that is why I'm not working right now. I am on leave, but I will be going back in March. So, you know, use your mouths, use your own feet, and we're the ones that put these people in office anyway, right? So they should be working for us. So let's make them do their jobs. They're not out there on the streets every day. They're not seeing all of this. They're busy doing other things. Maybe they are seeing some of the videos. Who knows? But another thing I want to stress to anybody that is seeing this, that has the opportunity, you elected officials from us, the little people that put you there, why don't you tell us? If you want us on your side, Washington, D.C., if you want us on your side, why don't you release the names of these people that are supposedly these illegal immigrants that have been committing these violent crimes? Give us that information instead of telling us, oh, the ICE agents are doing a fabulous job in getting these people off the street. Tell us who these people are. Be transparent with us. We deserve it. Not just illegal immigrants are causing these problems. People that put you in office have done that in the past and are still continuing it to this day. You can't just blame these professional agitators. You people are professional agitators. You're agitating the hell out of all of us. Anyway, go talk to your representatives. Make them do the actions for us, the ones that put them there. Don't wait until the polls, until you have to go back and vote these people in or out. Do it now. Because it's not going to matter in 240 some odd days. It matters right now. So call, write, email, whatever, your representatives and tell them, I want a meeting. I want to talk to you. I want to know what's going on. We have the right to know. We the people. And they keep talking about the Constitution. Have any of them even read the Constitution? Maybe that's what they need to do. Instead of worrying about some stupid ballroom. Maybe they need to sit down and read every word carefully of the Constitution. Maybe we all should do that. Try to stay warm out there. Stay safe out there. And try to have a sunny day. And talk to your representatives, okay? Chloe, signing off. Goodbye.